Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Little delay there. Okay, roll call, please.
Councilman Scaringi,
Present.
Councilwoman Rossanetti,
Present.
Councilwoman Riley,
Present.
Councilwoman Friedman,
Present.
Councilman Burns,
Present.
Councilman Strawn,
Present.
President Scanlon.
Present.
That's 7 here, 0 absent.
Okay, first up, we have Mr. Elgenheim to present or to talk to us about his proposed convenience store in Shenango Street. Go ahead, sir. You can tell us about what you're doing there.
Okay, so we're proposing to put in a market over there on 494.5 Shenango Street. It's gonna be a market and a hot food, a deli, and we want to get a special use permit for tobacco use.
Okay. All right, questions or comments on this by city council?
I guess I have a question. Can I say something? I don't know if you can hear me.
Go ahead. Council.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, I believe I read here somewhere that there are a couple other businesses that are selling tobacco there at this point.
Yes, there are two other businesses. One that's actually on the same land as the school, like right on it. And the other one that they just approved about a year ago, less than 100 feet away from the school.
Less than 100, say the last part again, I'm sorry.
It's about 150 feet away from the school.
Okay, so I guess this is, I mean, it's not just, you know, a question for you, it's for anybody. I'm just wondering, how did that happen? How did those businesses, how were they allowed, do we know, to actually be able to sell tobacco right next to the schools? When my understanding is that they're not. So does anybody know? Do we know the history behind this?
Sophia, I would, Councilman Rossanetti, I would assume that the ZBA was involved with that, the zoning board of appeals, and somehow they approved it. I'm not sure why. That's a long time ago. Obviously, that convenience store's been there for a lot of years. But I hear what you're saying. I agree. How did it get passed then? You know, and how did the other one get passed a year and a half ago, and the one at Shenango Street? So I'm not sure. Go ahead.
This is Matt from Corp Counsel. That's basically right. The process used to be that it would go through zoning. The process has changed. I think the feeling was that it was more appropriate for city council to grant these sorts of approvals rather than going to the zoning board of appeals, going through the zoning code. So this essentially goes through planning now. It's part of the site plan review, which this has gone through site plan review over the last couple of months, and now we're here at City Council for final approval. But that's the basic history, is that it did go through ZBA previously. Following the last approval, the feeling was that City Council is better equipped to review these and make these decisions, and so now it goes through City Council after getting a recommendation from the Planning Commission.
I would comment on this. I would go, Councilwoman Riley, go ahead, please.
Yes, so now that the process has changed, because there is an ordinance that was approved by the council in 2014, we are ultimately accountable for anything that moves through this group with our names on it. Are we able to go backwards in terms of the approval processes for those that have been given a waiver or were allowed to go against the ordinance that has been in place since 2014?
I would think not, right? I'm sorry. I would only think not, only because they've already been given that grandfather clause.
But they did not, well, not necessarily if they didn't follow this process.
Well, if
Well, the
if the process didn't exist at that time, they would obviously not be beholden to that process.
Corp counsel, can you give some feedback?
Yeah, that's something that we would have to look into, but initially, the process at the time, the ZBA process was what governed. It was part of the zoning code. My understanding is that this was a recommendation that came, I can't recall off the top of my head. It came from some organization with the state to put it in the zoning code, and that's the way that we should do it. We changed the process because we felt that that wasn't the best way to go. But ultimately, if that's something that you would be looking to do for these businesses that have already received waivers, we can certainly look into that. I can, bring that up with Ken tomorrow. We can see what we can do there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess for me, it's whether it's ZBA or city council. I'm just wondering, what was it? Why didn't we follow the rules that were in the books? What was it that made them qualified, or whatever the word is, for a waiver? I'm kind of torn about this. I really am, and I would like to have more information.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Councilman Burns, go ahead.
Yeah, do they sell alcohol? And also, are you going to sell vaping products as well?
No, none.
No what?
No alcohol, no lottery, and no vaping products.
Okay, thanks. The vaping, I think.
Is the actual, if you don't jump a fence, is the actual walking distance more closer to the 500 feet? I'm just curious. Then
It's farther than the 500 feet I have. It's like 550 feet if it's walking distance.
otherwise you'd have to jump a fence if you're talking a straight line, right? That's what we were.
Right.
For some reason, they measure these as the crow flies. I don't know why.
Right, that's just the shortest distance between two, but for kids, they'd have to jump a fence to get there in less than, it'd be more than 500 feet for them to use the sidewalks or whatever.
If you could fly over, yes.
Yeah, 500 is the walking distance.
I was at the planning commission meeting. They made a pretty good presentation. I think Joe was there too. The one night that they did this at the planning commission.
So I'll just jump in on Councilman Rissanetti's point. The prior approval, I think that was for 511. That was the most recent 511 Shenango. I did try and get a hold of that before tonight's meeting. Unfortunately, the planning department wasn't able to track it down for me in time, but that's something I think that, if you're interested in the prior, what the reasoning was for the prior approval, I think we should be able to get a hold of that, that report from planning for you.
Thank you.
I'm going to make a comment. I would have a hard time voting against this because the two neighboring properties obviously are permitted to sell tobacco. I'd have a hard time voting against this gentleman requesting his being able to sell tobacco.
And I also own the property too, and this is only a market, so there's nothing else that's there. It's not like I have other income from that property besides the business that I have there. And in the situation that we're in, everything's already as hard as it is. To be able to compete with two other locations that have everything that you want, why would somebody come to my location? For convenience.
Councilman Scriggy?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, the only thing I would add to President Scanlon's comments is I agree with Councilwoman Rezanetti. I think it's a good idea to get information regarding what were the reasons why the other waivers were granted. But for what it's worth, being consistent across the board, if the reasons in this case to deny a waiver are not substantially different than the ones that have already been granted, that makes me wonder if that's an issue of potential discrimination as well.
Yeah, I totally agree, actually. I totally agree with that. If
If I remember right, when they did their presentation at the planning, they're really, it struck me that they were working very hard to try to clean up this part of this Shenango Street and really try to be, good business neighbors there. And it's just not going to be viable without this. And they're actually farther away. And it's an elementary school, not a middle school. Maybe that's a fine point, but that's just kind of the things that I'm thinking through. So,
Yeah.
I gotta wonder across the city how many variances have been approved for select tobacco in their schools. I mean, I can't think off the top of my head, I don't know, but there's limitations out there. We'd have to, and I agree with Councilman Scriggi and Councilman Rossanetti, we should look into it a little more to see why the reason the 511 was approved. And I can go back and find out why the convenience store was approved that butts up to the property, then it makes a lot of sense to figure out why these were approved in the first place.
Hi, this is Obed.
We've got Obed on the line for planning. Yeah, go ahead, Obed.
Yes, I can shed some light on why the zoning board did grant a waiver. If I can go through those 5 criteria, if that's okay with all of you. The zoning board of appeals not come to a consensus as to whether or not granting of the variance will result in undesirable change in the neighborhood. Number 2, the zoning board of appeals conclude that under the applicable zoning regulations that there is not a reasonable alternative. Number 3, the zoning board of appeals determined that the requested variance was not substantial based on the following: nearby gas station sells tobacco.
Mr. President, I don't know, that phone connection is really bad and I can't understand a thing the gentleman from the planning commission is saying.
Conversation.
Can you hear me now?
No, it's really muffled. I can't understand anything he's saying.
Okay, Matt, I'm gonna email you the decision letter. If maybe you can read it off to them.
Sure.
Okay.
Can we also identify that caller?
Yeah.
That's Obed from the planning department.
From the planning, yeah.
What are we doing? Is there any other questions or comments on this right now? All right, thank you. We'll have some more discussion on this, and you can check with planning, okay? Or does he check with planning? That's for approval, final approval?
I mean, I just want to say one thing, that
Sure,
the reason, I believe the reason that they gave what he's gonna do is about 511 is because they used to be a store. And that's why they approved it, because it was at one time and then it shut down and then they rebuilt it. But that's the same thing with my building.
Yeah.
I just want to add that we were the Grand Union, and then even more recent to that, at the zoning department, it was approved to be a market. I don't know if they had gone through the whole process, but it was approved to be a market.
Okay.
So.
All right.
That's what.
Yeah, we'll have some more discussion about it, get some more information, and you can check back with the clerk's office to see how the discussion went.
Do you know how long before?
I don't assume it's too long. It would be at least 2 more weeks before another meeting to talk about it. And then it could go on the agenda for a vote on Wednesday after that. Okay, thank you.
So if they have any more questions from me, do they email me or do they want to ask me anything else?
Well, we can have them go through it. If there's any more questions for this gentleman, go through the clerk's office and they will get in touch with this gentleman and he'll have the answers for us at that point. All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate you coming down.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Is Chief Sikorsky around there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Chief Sikorsky, you're next. RL 20-91.
Can you hear me, Tom?
Yes. Yep. I got you.
All right. This is a COVID-19 grant. The state sent it out. I just thought I'd send it to our grant people to write for it. And we wrote for it and got it. It's for $87,000+. The first part of it was for overtime, enforcing any COVID-19 violations, things of that nature, for $38,194. They gave us $45,000 for N95 masks, and then they gave us $4,300 to buy hand sanitizer and things like that. And it goes back retroactive to, I believe it was January 31st. So everything we purchased already can also be covered under this grant.
Great job, Chief.
Cool. Sounds good.
Awesome.
All right, thank you. Any questions?
Questions or comments on this?
I got one.
I have a question. This is Oh,
How did my
go ahead.
friend Nick Bucci's name get on it?
Councilwoman Riley, go ahead.
I think it was Aviva was asking a
Oh,
question.
Councilwoman Friedman, I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh, thank you, Mr. President. So this grant is for all the things you mentioned specifically for the police department?
I believe so, although we mentioned in there the Parks Department, so I think, I'm not sure. We may be able to use it for everything else, because I really don't see us, just the police department, spending $87,000 at this point. You know, nobody knows how
Right.
long this is gonna go on. So I'll certainly look into it, and I know it talks about us enforcing rules in the parks and things like that, so, and that's part of us getting and enforcing, you know, people breaking rules in the parks, so, I guess I'll have to find out to let you know for sure, but well, certainly I don't believe the police department on its own would spend that $87,000 at this point.
Okay, so let's say if you do have extra, you would give them maybe to the Parks Department, or do you have plans for what you would do with the extra money if there is any?
We can't use it for anything for like this, so certainly if we have extra money, if we can use it throughout the city for the same type thing, it's got to be specifically for the things I mentioned to you. But certainly, if we can use it for parks or whoever, we certainly will. We can't
Okay,
use it for
great.
anything
Thank
else.
you.
You're welcome.
Right. Gotcha. Thank you.
Other questions or comments?
Yeah, I'm just wondering how Nick Bucci's name got on it.
Is it on? You know what? We got the email. Is it on there someplace? That's how the email came. We changed it.
Dear Mayor Bucci, it says.
Yeah, we had a good laugh. We had a good laugh when it came through. We saw it. It must be something that the state had on file or something, but we changed it since then. So you must have got the original copy. It came through.
We actually asked if that could be changed back, and they said it couldn't be.
Mayor David signed it.
Yeah, that was what we were advised to do. We notified them that the name of the mayor was incorrect, and they said, "Don't change it. We can't change it. Just sign." So we've done as the feds have instructed.
I like his name on there. I'm gonna send it to him.
Other questions or comments? Thank you, Chief.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Ray Standish, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right, tell us about RL 20-90, please.
Yes, this resolution authorizes the mayor to enter into agreement with Barton LaJudas for design services for the Deco District Streetscape Improvements Project in the amount not to exceed $174,970.
And this is Jared Cram as well on it, in case anyone has any other questions. I don't think my webcam can activate though.
Okay. Other questions or comments on this?
Hi, yes, I have some questions.
Sure, go ahead.
This is Councilwoman Friedman. All right, thanks, Mr. President. So this all looks awesome. I am really excited about this. However, when I was campaigning on the north side, a lot of constituents had concerns that there's so much money that goes into renovating downtown, and then on the residents of the north side feel like they're not seeing any of that investment money. So I was just wondering, like, for example, when was the last time these streets were paved? You know, because I noticed there's a lot of money going into like repaving, doing the curbs again. Do you have information about when the last time that was done?
Aviva, we can get you that information from DPW, but anecdotally, for example, State Street downtown, separate from what is being discussed tonight on the streetscape, needs about $1 million in utility, stormwater, sanitary sewer, and water line work just on one block between Lewis and Henry Street. So the infrastructure needs, at least on State Street in this area, are pretty great. In addition, Henry Street at Water Street, that intersection is not designed to complete streets status, meaning that the crosswalks are not at 90 degrees. There's no signalized crosswalks in that area. So I hear you out about the north side, but in terms of an infrastructure standpoint, this area has significant need. We've been able to apply for some grants. Some have been successful, like the Deco District. Others have not been successful. So the need exists in every district in the city, and this just happens to be one of them.
But I thought that it said that this doesn't include any kind of utility updating, right? I can't find exactly the page where I read that.
It doesn't.
But, right? Okay.
The upgrade is being done on a capital project, and it has to be completed before we can do any of the surface amenity. So you got to do all the underground work first, and then you can do curbs and sidewalks, bump out, tree plantings, that type of work after.
Okay. I see. So we would need to do the utility work before all of this Deco District
On State Street.
update.
You can do other
Okay.
portions of it, but the piece on State Street would have to wait until the utility work is completed.
Right. Okay. And I just want to be clear. I mean, this all sounds great. You know, I very much am for a lot of, you know, the branding and the making it more pedestrian friendly. I don't want to sound like I'm not in favor of this. I just worry that, you know, our investment is disproportionately favoring one area over another. So that was just my concern with that.
Other questions or comments?
Thank you for clarification, by the way. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Standish.
Thank you.
Okay, Jared, you're next on 20-92. Jared, you still there?
Yes, I'm sorry, I was muted. This is an easement with DOT for a number of different things related to the 434 Greenway project. It involves some temporary easements for construction, some permanent easements which will not involve the actual acquisition of land. And then there is a fee acquisition, which includes a portion of city property right off of Vestal Ave. And they're in total, 33,000 is coming to the city. So there's a project description of the different acquisitions that'll be made, and some information on DOT. This is a sliver of property that the city owns that's heavily sloped, wooded, no development possibility, nor is it connected in any real way to MacArthur Park. They are utilizing sections of MacArthur Park for the trail side of this. On a very cold day last winter, myself, members of the Parks Department met DOT out to discuss the best way through MacArthur Park to improve trails there that will not impact Conlon Field or any of the operations that typically go on there during the summertime. So this has been reviewed by Parks, and this is for the city-owned property as part of that project.
Jared, how far are they away from breaking ground on this project? Do you know?
I don't. I mean, the last update was the major update publicly was at that big meeting at MacArthur School. But I don't have an exact date. I'm sure that things have been, like anything else in the state, paused to a certain extent.
Okay. Questions or comments on this?
You know, when was the meeting with the parks over there?
This was going back. This was not actually last winter, but I think it was the winter before.
Okay. And also, is it a possibility that because I keep hearing Cuomo complaining about, not complaining, but letting us know that he's out of money. So I'm wondering if there's a chance they would cancel this and use the $20 million somewhere else. I'm just,
Typically as it relates to New York State is when a grant is funded or a program is funded and you've got an award letter and it gets to something as far along as a right of way. And I know that this letter was dated on April 23rd. So sort of in the midst of all this, they're going forward with it. It really is, it pulls out of that discretionary fund because they certainly spent millions of dollars in design and pre-development on this. And so I would see this moving forward in the long term, despite the crisis.
Other questions or comments on this? Thank you, Jared. You got the next one too.
Yep. So again, an easement. This time it's with NYSEG for electrical service to the new 911 emergency communications tower at Ely Park. I was also up there today with the Parks Department, and there is an electrical line that runs just 10, 15 feet or so near the tree line to provide electric service for the updated cell tower at Ely Park. I'm not sure if this council heard from the county regarding the necessity to replace the emergency communication tower throughout the county. I think probably Geo, you and Tom, you may remember, but replacing a 60-year-old system. The new tower is up at Ely Park, and this is to basically provide it with power.
Questions or comments on this? All right, Jared, on the 95, please.
Okay. Regarding the Canal Plaza grocery store project, the Broome County Council of Churches is a recipient of a $150,000 state grant to support the construction of the grocery store and the build out. And it's a reimbursable grant, as all DASNY grants are. So they need cash flow. And essentially, the BLDC has approved a revolving fund loan to the Broome County Council of Churches to provide them adequate cash flow and assuming a reimbursement from the DASNY grant. So the loan will be given to the Council of Churches in $150,000. It's been secured and will be paid in full when they receive their grant funding from DASNY. The grant funding is secured, but because it's a reimbursable grant, when the city gets one of these, we just generally create a budget line and use our existing cash flow and then seek the reimbursement. For a nonprofit, they don't automatically have a $150,000 line of credit. So the BLDC was able to do it at a lower than prime rate, which is advantageous for the grocery store. It's a plan that works for them, and it's good that the city can support them in this effort.
Thank you, Jared. Questions or comments on this? All right, thank you, Jared. On to Grace for pending legislation, please.
We just have one from 2 weeks ago. It's RL 20-89. It's just a parking ramp condition assessment.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments before I adjourn the meeting? I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
We're adjourned.